Okay.
Not saying anything.
Welcome. I know. I just wanted to troll our audio equipment. Hello, I am David Phreak Turley. Welcome to LCS tonight. This is Aiden, Zirene, Moon, Isaac, Azael, Cummings, Bentley. How excited were we for that fifth game of the day? Barn burner.
I was actually really excited for it because we've seen a lot of like bloody games come back, but it was like you can still play slower games, right? And I like that they were able to find on Clutch's side ways to break neutral games, right? Because that's always important.
Sure, yeah.
The game's even. What do you do? And that's what I love about some teams is that they don't just keep having that back and forth. They actually find the proactive play, which was the Barons for them.
Fair enough. Worked pretty well. Azael, your thoughts?
I'm going to say I might have fallen asleep there for a minute. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I think the last game was pretty slow, and I do think it is interesting to see how the teams break those deadlocks when it is in that and you know, going heavily towards the Baron. But it also did feel like that game, unlike some of the other ones, teams were like less decisive as far as, you know, kind of utilizing their tanks to more aggressively dive or more aggressively try to like close out the games or finish them. Yeah. And I do think, especially when you do have a Caitlyn plus Baron, I don't think that you should need the Banner plus Baron combo to be able to actually siege down these turrets. And it feels like sometimes the teams are tunneling too hard on this strategy because they know how strong it is. I mean, you have 3 tanks, stand in front of a Caitlyn, put up your trap line and shoot the turret, right? And it's the same kind of process that you would expect teams to do on previous patches. So you definitely want to see them, you know, still utilizing the basics and stuff on the new patch.
Yeah, I really did like how they got like the first Baron and stuff, but then it was like the second, the third. It's like, do you really need that many to do this?
Right. But and I think the answer is almost never yes when you're the better team. So moving on, the standings in the NALCS at the end of week 7. There are 4 games left to play for each of these teams. Some of the teams have only that many wins right now. You can see these standings shaping up. The top 3 have already locked in their spots in playoffs. None of the buys have been locked in just yet, but it means there are only 3 spots to play for. Technically, the bottom 7 all in contention, but time is, of course, running down for these squads. I want to talk about the teams that have started to make that move. Counter Logic Gaming alone in 7th, 2 games out of playoffs with a 2-0 week today and yesterday. Actually pretty sick to see them kind of shape things up.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting to see them, you know, kind of come back, but it's so weird because you watch them and they've lost so many games in a row. You know, it's kind of Biofrost making his joke, oh, you never beat CLG more than 6 times in a row, right? And it's like, they had a great weekend, and Stixeye I think was super impressive and has been for the last couple of weeks, even in losses. Biofrost I thought was popping off today, and it's fantastic to see. But it's still, is it too little, too late, right? Like the amount of games left to play makes it so hard. Even if you sweep out, the chances of you getting through are pretty low.
Yeah, and that's kind of the sad thing for them because as soon as Jat lost faith, they started to surge. Biofrost, like, oh, I was just being held down by these Jat chains, and now he's popping off again. BioDaddy seems like he's back, and he's like stepping up as well. We're hearing that he's actually it's like his turn to shot call on the team this week, right? And they have that 2-0, so this might be a winning formula for them where they all split long. They have been trying to find what's going to work for them, right? And ultimately, if they don't make it to playoffs, this may be something that helps them in summer, right? This is franchise, so it's all about pushing your team and trying to get the best roster and the best setup you can.
And long term, really, like spring split means MSI if you win the whole thing, and if you're the second best team, okay, it means championship points to make it to Worlds, but if you can be the best by the summer, then we make it to Worlds regardless, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of if they make it or not to playoffs, I do think if they can actually sweep the rest of the games, then they'll have confidence going towards summer. Yeah. But it's an interesting discussion of, you know, if they go back to their losing ways and say they lose the last 4 games of the season, then like, what do you look at this split as, right? Do you look at it as a success, a failure? It has to be thought of as a failure as a team that's never missed, you know, playoffs before.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, do you still have faith that this team is going to build upon that?
Yeah, have
do you
to.
Start
the faith has to be there.
But do you have faith in the replacements that you're going to kick out the players?
So I have faith in the Dankest timeline.
Watch out in the GGs, or
I
who's going to come in?
Hey, I have faith in the Dankest timeline of CLG makes it the 2-game difference, takes TSM's spot, and the first time TSM misses finals because they missed playoffs because CLG took them out and took 6th place. That's what I'm believing in. Likely or not, I don't care. It's going to be fun. Let's talk about the other teams that have locked in playoffs. Of course, Echo Fox had a while ago. So Cloud9 locked playoffs this weekend. They had a interesting week for themselves. Obviously, we saw their loss to CLG and a very interesting game against Golden Guardians where it started out pretty weak, but they did win. Again, they are guaranteed to be in the top 6.
Man, that loss for Golden Guardians was actually really rough because at the start, Contracts was just playing out of his mind, and then it was, he had the ball, he dropped the ball in a few mechanical things, and then later in the game, it just ended up with, you know, High blowing his flash and ghost off of something that wasn't actually a threat to him, so very small things came through and just added up to a C9 win off the back of Jensen, I would say.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, and Jensen played incredibly well, and that's something that Cloud9 has kind of always had from him throughout the entire split. And that's one of the best things about this team. You know, as a Cloud9 fan, you can look at Jensen and know that he's always going to be putting forth these really reliable performances. He's always really good in lane. He's extremely good in team fighting. Like, he's just a point of power, it seems like, pretty much no matter what the meta is, no matter what champion he's playing, and it showed through. And honestly, like you said, I do think it was small differences that actually decided this game. It was not a dominant Cloud9 performance, and this weekend overall certainly, does add some more questions to the kind of growing list after their losses, to Echo Fox, both their losses there, and then their loss to 100 Thieves, and their loss to CLG, and questions are starting to pile up a little bit, but it was close.
It a lot, right? I think the patch really does highly affect it.
Yeah, I think we'll go into that discussion a bit later on. We'll go through the teams first, but I agree. I'll pencil you in for some patch discussion later on for mid laners. I think it is actually an important point. But Clutch Gaming, I want to talk about them as well. It's okay. It's in the mind, though. The pencil is stronger in the mind. Clutch Gaming, a 2-0 week. They have also secured a spot in the playoffs, beating Optic and winning at the end of the day as well against FlyQuest. They're top 6.
This is so strange, too, because it's like they've been like in that top half pretty much the entire time, and it's like they locked in 3rd here, and they're like 7 wins in their last 8 games. It's like, when are we going to start saying Clutch is a good team?
When they beat a good team.
It's exactly, that's it, right? It's that discussion was had, I think it was last week on the analyst desk, Jad and Mark were talking about, okay, well, if they beat Cloud9, they're a good team. And then they got blasted by Cloud9, right? But they keep winning, and there's a team that just seems, honestly, I can describe them no other way other than extremely consistent. They seem to always beat the teams worse than them and always lose to the teams better than them. And that, to me, says that your team is pretty darn good, but it has a severe lack of actual playmaking and players who are able to be those clutch players, funny enough, and kind of step up and make those big plays. Because while you have a team like that who always beats the teams below them in the standings, they can never beat a team above them in the standings, but then you look at a team like Golden Guardians, who has taken some games off of highly placed teams, and you would objectively say, oh, well, Clutch should be a better team than Golden Guardians. Well, why can they beat some of these top teams? Because they have people who are willing to make plays, guys like Contracts and High and so on and so forth who are, kind of stepping up and I think being more aggressive. And it feels like Clutch doesn't really have that. Like Febvin, you look at him, you're like, damn, Febvin is really good. But I can't really think of a lot of games where Febvin was like, ooh, the team was losing, and then Febvin did this crazy, risky thing, and then he turned it around, and that's why they won, right?
It's more of like the Bjergsen, where it's like, my team is feeding, and I'm just going to be 0-0-0, right?
But he has a lot of farm, and he puts out a lot of damage, and he's he is really good. But I think to go to that next level and for people to actually believe in them, you need the X factor, and that's kind of one of the things that is there in pro sports across every sport, really. You need the person who's going to want to be the guy who makes that play, and that sometimes requires, I think, a different mentality. So it can be tough to just be like, hey, Febvin, this thing that seems like the wrong thing to do for you all the time? You're really good, but you should do it, right? And
yeah, because it's a higher variance, but if it works out, you're going to actually win your team the game or get them back in, right? And like you were talking about Golden Guardians, they've actually had some people step up as that X factor, that clutch player. Yeah. Whereas Clutch, it's kind of Hakuho in my mind is the only person. And that's why I think they're actually going to see even more wins going forward, because I think the patch just helped out Hakuho and Lyra so much. And they used to have this duo where they could ward together. Now it's like pick champions, Morgana, Thresh. Like they're very successful with less vision. And Lyra's more successful in his farming style, getting 600 gold up when he's the one who dies for first blood. Like this stuff is very easy for Clutch to start using to get small advantages. It's just pushing that advantage has been pretty tough for them. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier Clutch having to beat good teams to look good. It's Echo Fox, then Team Liquid, then 100 Thieves, the next 3 opponents to close up most of their season. Golden Guardians being their 4th. So we'll see if Clutch can hold on through with that, or if you start to see the cracks again and they're a 6th seed team coming into playoffs. Let's move on to what you want to talk about, a patch/metagame discussion. I wanted to bring things up first because one thing I noticed, we're seeing a lot more Zeke's Harbinger, which is a armor-heavy, no HP item on the support role, as well as, of course, his Banner of Commands, which are all armor as well. So the tanks don't have any bonus health or magic resist anymore. And so the mages are doing a hell of a lot more damage. It's weird, like the AP items obviously did help them. I think Arcanos was stronger, et cetera, but the tanks stopped building MR and health, and so the mages are stronger as well. And like both those things have made mid lane be more important. You talked about Jensen earlier with Cloud9. I agree, they're doing a lot better. What do you guys want to talk about overall with 8.4, the metagame, updating, everything else?
I think it's all the happenings. Tracker's Knife, Banner are like the 2 things, because I think Tracker's Knife affects a lot of the early game, and we're seeing junglers be very successful at that, but also there's laners who they play too aggressive and then they get punished, and they're very easy to exploit. Like I thought C9's bottom lane, we saw that come through where it's a very early gank from Lee Sin goes bottom, and then that could be like in some scenarios, that's the game right there where all those summoners are blown and first blood goes over to a Lee Sin, right? But I also think Banner is pretty insane, but I think it's not as insane as it was when people didn't know how to play against it. So now it's like, there's this mini meta where you build Banner, and if they have Materializer, they take it away. So it's like, if they have Materializer, do I not build Banner? Probably not. And you just kind of stay away from it.
And I think especially people are tunneling too much on it, even in losing situations. So it's like, there have been some games that were standing out to me. I believe it was, Dokla today, for example. He was, 130, 140 CS behind Huni or whatever. His team is very clearly losing the game, and he's building a banner on Maokai, and I'm like, you probably won't even get access to the Baron, and now you're already
Choke can one-shot a banner minion with his ultimate, right? It's not even it's going to keep the Cho'Gath down.
Yeah, and I mean, the bigger thing to me is just that it's like you're already way less tanky than this Cho'Gath, who's massively ahead of you in gold and has all these stacks and everything, and then you're investing so much gold in this item that only really pays off under this circumstance that happens if you win a fight, probably.
Yeah.
And how do you win the fight if you're like this super squishy guy, especially, you were pointing it out, and I've noticed it quite a bit today, as well as some of the other days, is just like banner plus Frozen Heart as a combo, which feels pretty good, but then when there's an Azir
2,000 health champions at level 16.
Yeah, like an Azir or a Corki or, like even like some of these other guys like Cassio and so on and so forth that are coming through, Oriana's, and you just, like, your tank walks forward and instantly dies, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, it made me kind of WTF at one point because Lorlo had like half the HP of, I think
the Cho'Gath opponent.
Of the Cho'Gath of Licorice.
Yeah.
It literally had half his HP. And when he walked up, he just actually ate him for a third of his HP. So it's like Cho'Gath is actually a super busted tank top in this banner meta because he can buy banner, doesn't care because he gets bonus HP from his R, and then he also is really good against other banners, right?
Yeah.
So he's just able to non them, and if they build banner, he can eat the minion, and he does more damage to them, right? In terms of the percent of their HP because they're not building any.
Yep. All things that matter, and of course, games have been faster overall so far. We had like a 2-minute faster game time. I think the graphic came up. No, here it is right there. Weeks on the Thicks, right? 39 minutes roughly. Now we're down to about 36 and change. So yeah, about a 2-minute faster so far in this week. Obviously, a couple of long ones in there as well. But
I think the top end comes down for sure.
Yeah, the top end came down. Haven't any hour-long games. We had some 25-minute base rushes, but so did Team Liquid earlier on the split. Either way, move on to our next topic. We're going to the Twitter section of NALCS tonight. Powell Weissman says, "Can I get the hottest take on Echo Fox's bot lane?"
Ooh.
Give me one sentence. Hot take. Go.
They're the reason they lose. They don't win out on the NALCS. Like,
worst overall bot lane NA.
Damn. Wow.
Yours?
Mine's not like brutal. I think.
Hot take. Let's go.
I think that
it's colding down. Cooling down. That's English.
It's room temperature at best, Zirene.
This is a room temperature take, Zirene. What you got?
Like, there's a lot of explanation here. They're not played around.
All right,
at
that's
the
not even a take at all.
Well, yeah. I think they played. This is an analysis.
Okay. We don't want.
Yeah, no, that's not. It's got to fit in old Twitter.
They played like shit this week.
Okay,
that's what you want to hear. Like,
yes,
they played awfully
this
week, right? Yeah. Adrian's busting Q down on the ground as Alistar, level 1, hitting nothing, and then that opens them up to just lose the game through bottom lane, right? It's not just one of them, it's both of them, but it's like they won that last game because they eventually just said, okay, let's back up. Hey, better ADC wins the game, and Arrow's like deathless, 4-0-5, and Altec's like 0-4. It's like these types of things can lose them, like you said, the game, but it's like, right now, I feel like it was a bad week from them, and they aren't played around, which even just makes it worse. And you have to play around them in some cases.
I guess the question
I don't think it's just, they're the worst bottom lane.
No, I don't think they're the worst either, but I do think that, like, compared to the other areas on their team, like, especially when you look at who they were getting smashed by, they did not get smashed by Sven and Mithy and Double Lift and Olay, right? It was definitely in Matt
and Arrow and Lemonation.
Arrow and Lemonation, right? Yep. And that is not something that I think inspires a lot of confidence, in this bot lane. And I think the thing is, it's like, yes, they're not really being played around, but should you play around your bot lane here, or should you be playing around Huni, right? And Huni's like so damn good that he probably deserves those resources.
Yes.
So it becomes tough because I think that in both these games, Echo Fox's solo lanes were doing so well, and Dark was kind of focusing up there and having a lot of success around that. And then it becomes this question of like, do I help the losing lane, or do I try to like emphasize our strengths? And then that's like kind of like a philosophical choice or whatever you want to say.
And I think the answer is almost never like save a losing lane. Like there are situations, yes, but like in general, no, you shouldn't. And I think it's always correct to come into your game saying, Huni's better than their top laner. Let's draft around that. That is pretty much literally always the right answer in a draft. My top laner is better. Let's play around that fact. That should always be your game plan pre-game.
Yeah, and it's like, if Altec and Adrian are the two worst players on the team, which should be no surprise considering how the other three have played, right? They just have to take all the pressure, soak it as much as they can, take a beating bottom lane, and with less vision and stuff, there's way easier times to dive.
Right.
So.
And Adrian's done this before, right? He was on the TIP squad that looked super good, and it was all about impact and rush back then. And he found a way to play Soraka or Leona every game and not die and show up in team fights.
And he played Mortals
as well,
right?
Like, right. It's been like honestly,
he's used to this.
A lot of Adrian's career is like he's been on these very successful teams, and he's been solid, and he has, played what works for the team and kind of been this role player, but it has rarely been about him and his play. It has usually been about X star on the team, and that's who they're going to play around.
Yep. So we'll see if that comes through. So next up, Carlos Alexis asks, how do you see Banner of Command in a future state? Will it be nerfed? Will it become a new unique play style? What do you project? You say it's going to be nerfed?
It's got to be nerfed.
To what degree?
Okay, so I think that in any time where the correct choice is to sit on, I have all this gold, I have 5 items, and the correct choice is actually just in case the other team gets a Baron and gets a banner, I need to sit on Dematerializer. That feels bad, and that feels like that should not be the correct choice. I should not have to specifically take this rune and then sit on it and never use it the whole game just because I'm like, ooh, but maybe if they do this one thing, I ought to lose if I don't. So that just feels bad, and I can't see the designers being okay with that long term. So my guess is that there is either going to be, it is going to be nerfed to the point where they feel there are answers without Dematerializer, and I think that is where I am okay with it being. I think it should be powerful, but I do not think that it should be a prerequisite that I've pre-planned in, outside of the game to actually answer this.
Yeah, I agree, because then you can't adjust in the middle of the game, and there's already some things like, if the enemy has a lot of engage as their last pick, he didn't draft disengage or something. There are ways that you can kind of get screwed going into the game.
Homewrecker turns off the cannon.
Boom. Oh.
Great.
But I still feel like if Ohmwrecker was actually a minion dematerializer active, then you could swap it over. But I still feel like it's definitely too strong. But the question for me is it too strong even without Baron? Because people are buying it in lanes, and you're
unaffected in that
but you're seeing Cho'Gath in these lanes where he can just push forward. We saw Golden Glue buy it mid Scion and get the turret at 12 minutes because he got to use
in Academy this week.
So
watch the game.
It may just be that people are now catching on to it and it has momentum like Old Ardent Sensor.
And that's always the thing.
I assume it'll get nerfed. I just don't know how it'll get nerfed or how they want to nerf it. Maybe if it's just, it gives it damage reduction instead of spell immunity, right?
I mean, to me, the biggest thing is that's out of line with the range, right? I think
that's for Baron, just in general.
Exactly, right? I think that as a niche, you build it against a team that does not have side lane wave clear that is physical damage. I think that is an intelligent choice, and that is where it should fit. And even as a mid lane thing, I think that's kind of cool if you can make that work. But I do not think that it should so massively outrange you that your AD carry does not even have the option to step forward and try to take it out. Because if that is the we have agreed upon this fact that AD carries are going to be in the game and your bot lane marksman will deal your physical damage from range, and therefore he should be the one to kill it. Well, he should be able to be in range to kill it, right? He should have the opportunity to do so. And I think the damage is okay if your Sivir or your Caitlyn or your Ezreal can step forward and actually shoot this.
But that's an issue with the Baron empowering it, not just Banner of Command, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of would you even?
Well, the range is expanded even more, right?
The range is only expanded from Banner from Baron itself. I don't believe Banner affects that in the slightest. It ups the damage. My take on it is essentially, I think if the team is unwilling to hard engage on you, you're allowed X amount of turret damage. And whatever that number is a fair number. So either Baron lasts less long or the bonus damage goes down or something. But I'm okay conceptually you can't reach it, too bad, lose a turret. But the number of turrets you lose is the balancing point, and because that gameplay existed, it just didn't do bonus damage before, right? And so either way, it's going to be a thing that we'll look at over the next few weeks.
Definitely strong.
And as we saw either way, there were teams that didn't even buy Banner today, right? So we'll see what it really looks like throughout the rest of 8.4. Korea's going to be on that next week. That's going to be exciting to look at, and we'll see what comes out of that one. Move on to our final Twitter question. Andy asks, if MSI started today, which team would you send if you had a choice?
The casting team. Best NA team.
Best NA team, the casters.
I actually don't know, man. I mean, you have to say Equifox, I think, because they are the #1 team right now. But it feels like after this weekend seeing the bot lane, I'm like, okay, if this bot lane is losing to Deftly and Matt, how do they do against Deft and Mata, right? Do you have confidence in them?
You think KT will go?
I mean, maybe, right?
See, I would send MVP and Rocket
Ruler
and
Prey or
Prey Gorilla, yeah.
Bring out all the crap teams that NA can win. No, I would just send the number 10, 12 teams from the other regions.
Oh, okay.
I would send them. Whoever wins NA can show up as well, and then it'll be beautiful.
Yeah, I send the casting team. If I can't, then I send Cloud9.
That's great. Let's move on. Next week's schedule going to be up on your screens in a second there. Of course, again, only 2 weeks of games, a.k.a. 4 games left to play for these squads. Technically, the bottom half of the table can still challenge for playoff spots. Clutch versus Echo Fox. Can they be a good team? Can CLG keep their climb going? And can someone keep TSM down so that CLG can make that rise happen? Who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it's definitely going to be a big game for Clutch Echo Fox. I think, as you said, the next 3 games for Clutch are big ones. They're all playoff teams, and that to me is going to be what depicts everyone's playoff predictions, right?
Yep.
They're going to be in the playoffs. Are they going to go out in the first round? This next couple weeks are going to tell us.
Yeah.
I think.
TSM Liquid, that's a big one.
It is going to be a fun one. Speaking of TSM Liquid, segues are amazing, by the way. Look at those fine gentlemen there. Kobe hopefully will not be sick next week, and will be on the NLCS live stream alongside Reginald and Liquid of TSM and Team Liquid, respectively. No relation. It's going to be beautiful.
That's true.
Liquid 112,
Yeah,
Steve Arnstead.
hopefully Kobe's okay. Hashtag save Kobe.
Hashtag save Kobe. We had Zirene here instead, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm no freak, though.
That's true. You have hair. So maybe like we could, alternate.
Not for long. It's going, man.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to be like you guys soon.
Mine's dropping sooner. Either way, thank you very much for watching NALCS tonight. You all are amazing human beings and pets that are watching alongside your human beings. That's it for us. Stay awesome.
Maybe a Kading can prove us